2025. If you are listening to this around January 1st, and I hope that you do, then welcome to my nerd side. This is the part where I only do this once a year, but this is real life and real estate. And so this is the real life side of things, is that I really got into mindset and goals around 2014. I was in a completely different industry, a completely different business, but I was definitely being told and coached and mentored and my mindset had a lot to do with my success. And while I have enjoyed goals off and on my entire life, I had never put a lot of stock or a lot of effort into creating goals. And that was the first year that I created my first vision board that had SMART goals, right? Measurable, attainable, all that stuff. One of the things I did is I put on my vision board 12 date nights. Now, because it was on the vision board, I think we actually executed 11 of them. I also put down that I was going to run 4 5Ks, because if I always had a 5K to look forward to, then I was going to keep on running, and I really needed the motivation to keep on running. So while they've ebbed and flowed, there's been business goals, there have been personal goals, half marathons, and sometimes I have gotten way out there with thinking about where will I be in 5 years, or what could I be doing in 5 years. And let me be honest, those goals need to be handled very lightly, very carefully. Here's a fun one. A few years ago, I was having just so much success with running. My body was really clicking. My training was going really well. And I thought, wow, I've done 2 half marathons and each year I'm getting slightly faster. So how about and one of my favorite podcasts is about endurance sports for women. And so that really just got into my head. And I thought, I'm going to plan to qualify for the Boston Marathon. And then I looked up the qualifying times. I'm like, oh my gosh. That's crazy. And luckily, recently, I have reevaluated that, and it was a goal that I held very lightly because it was so far away. But that is not going to happen. If it was going to happen, I would be spending 2025 doing a lot of marathon training, and I probably wouldn't be doing very much real estate. I would be in the gym, I'd be on the road. So long-term goals are great, but they should be held lightly. But for now, let's talk about 1-year goals. Whether you are starting in January or March or September, it doesn't really matter. But I do believe in the power of having a 12-month goal. And if that 12-month goal is something like an athletic endeavor, right? Lifting this much, or running this fast, or running this far, or climbing this mountain, right? Summiting Mount Rainier. That is a wonderful thing to put on your 12-month goals. Because once it's on your 12-month goals, you're kind of forced to then break down that activity into 1-month goals. If I'm going to summit Mount Rainier, then I need to be a part of a training group and a summiting group, and I need to put deposits down, stuff like that. If I'm going to run a marathon this year, I need to start looking at plans, and I need to start looking at my life and find out, when do I have time to train for a marathon? But what about buying a home? If buying a home is on your 2025 goals, I think it might actually be easier than training for a marathon, okay? And I know that sounds crazy, but marathon training is really, really intense. Now, buying a home is really intense, but I don't think it's as intense as marathon running. So there you go. You've got something to compare it to. Maybe half marathon. Maybe that's just my experience because I've never run a marathon. Because I trained for 2 half marathons, and I thought, this is the peak amount of running I am willing to do. I'm just not willing to run any longer or any more than this. I'm done. So your 12-month goals. Then you break that down into some 1-month goals or some milestones throughout the year. And then you break that down even further. So let's talk about buying a home, because this is real life and real estate. Buying a home means that you should get pre-approved. You should meet at least 1 lender. I don't think you should meet 1 lender. I think you should meet 2 or maybe even 3. Ask them to do soft pulls of your credit. Talk about your goals. If there's anyone else that is invested in this purchase with you, whether that is a partner or a spouse or family member, or maybe this is a couple of adults coming together to purchase something. Maybe it's not just 2 people. Maybe there are 4 people involved. Talk about your goals. Talk about what is important in this property. Now, I have a buyer questionnaire that I can send you for free that will help walk you through this discussion so that it isn't just things you found on the internet, but it is actually a discussion that will help guide you all through the what is important to you here, what is important to you there, and how to compromise, where to compromise, and maybe what not to compromise on. So you're going to get a lender. You're going to start talking about the goals of this property and the problems that it's going to solve. I want you to talk with all decision makers. And if you have children over the age of 5, I would get their input just a little bit. Let them talk about their dream home and maybe what that would look like. And if they start thinking that the walls are going to be made out of candy, just indulge them. They only get to dream like this for a couple of years, and then they start getting really practical about, well, does it have a trampoline in the yard? And then can we have a dog? Or then can we have rabbits? Then can we have chickens? So get them on board, at least in the discussion. And maybe they're not on board as early as your lender is, but do get kids on board. Next, I want you to consider taking a home buying class. There are several different types, and if you are a first-time home buyer, I strongly suggest that you take the Washington State Finance Housing Commission home buyer class. That was quite a mouthful. It is a 5-hour class that can be done over 2 evenings or 1 Saturday, and it qualifies you for down payment assistance. That's wonderful. Now, if you are not a first-time home buyer, you may want to take it anyway because it gives you an incredible inside look behind the scenes over what goes on in the purchase of a home from a lender's perspective and a real estate agent's perspective. I love sharing the nuts and bolts with people because they're very invested in buying their home. There are shorter classes, and so if you are interested in something more of a refresher style class, hey, I haven't bought a home in 10 years, tell me what's up with real estate today. I'd love to book that with you. Now, what if you've gone through all these steps, you're like, wow, we've checked all these things off, and we're thinking we might need to buy a home in May and June. Okay, that's the schedule that's going to fit your calendar. That's the schedule that is going to fit your family and your family's needs. May and June are the most popular, most busy months, and I'm going to tell you right now, I also have a child graduating in June of 2025, and so my own personal schedule is very full. You may need to look at your personal schedule and say, wow, is this really the time we want to look at buying a house, selling a house? Consider that. Next up, talk to a real estate agent, probably talk to 2 or 3. Again, just like lenders, we're not all made equal. There are locations that I don't cover that area. It's just not in my wheelhouse. Just like for certain lenders, they don't do certain type of loans. So do talk to a couple of real estate agents. Make sure that you mesh well. You're going to spend a lot of time together, either on the phone, on email, or in person. That's next. Then you get to start shopping for properties. You will need to sign a buyer agency agreement that authorizes this real estate agent to represent you. That was new a couple of years ago, and then the different needs for it have changed, and as of August 2024, this is required before we show you a house. It is a great idea to use this as a way to interview agents and use this opportunity to get to know people, find out where they go, how they get paid, what their rates are, what kind of menu of services, so that you know what to expect from your real estate agent. But do plan on that. It'll be a buyer agency agreement. We're going to do this early. I think it really sets up the relationship for success because we talk about the nuts and bolts before we're emotionally invested into a particular house. Once we've got that all done, then we can start showing houses. And it's so fun. It's so fun. It's so emotional. It's so exhausting to eliminate homes based on different things. Now, I can't spend enough time online. I can't be on Zillow and Redfin as much as every single client is, or I would never actually do anything. You are going to be the expert in how a home feels. You're going to be the expert in how the flow works for you. And you are going to be the expert over whether or not you want to do the maintenance on this home or this yard. And they may have very, very similar numbers, and so they fit the search parameters, but I can't feel that for you. And so I want you to know, I don't really choose the home, but I do help you evaluate along the way, and I help negotiate. That is my primary purpose here. Once we've found your home, then we can start negotiating. And if it is a very hot market, which it tends to be in May and late April, then we may have to do some creative things about financing and negotiation. If it's other times of the year, just sort of depends. I'm not sure what 2025 is going to bring us. And so maybe it will be a balanced market. I don't know. Maybe it will be a buyer's market. We just don't know what 25 is going to bring us. So let's see what happens. We get to negotiate. We get to find the home. If our offer gets picked, then we really know how long it's going to be before you get to move into your new home. There's so many other things, and there's other episodes that are going to cover the nuts and bolts of that, inspection and appraisal and all kinds of things. But if 2025 is the year that you're going to buy a home or sell your home, it's important to break that down into manageable steps. For selling your home, I would love to talk to you early. Why? I would really like to talk to you early because when selling your home, again, there are very many milestones that you need to hit at appropriate times, and those appropriate times are mostly set by you. So if you're thinking, I want to sell my home for top dollar, let's talk about what that means. What is that top dollar that you're hoping for? Is that realistic? Will the market bear it? Will it appraise? And what time of year is that most likely to happen? Is that most likely to happen in March, April, May? We need to talk. And then that helps me keep you apprised as I see things change in your neighborhood, in your micro market. Then I can tell you, hey, hold on, something nearby just closed, and it closed for over asking, under asking, and this is how the appraisal went. Here's the information that will impact the sale of your home. So let's talk early. Another reason to talk early is there might be needed repairs. Because you've lived in the home, you may know about some of them, but because you've lived in the home, you may be numb to some of them. I'd love to talk to you. I'd love to help you evaluate which is absolutely necessary, which is cosmetic, which would just be nice, right? Millennial gray went everywhere for a long time. And so if you have gray walls, then it might be time to consider painting. But let's talk, because that is right for some homes and it is not right for others. You never know. I mean, well, you do know, actually. And so I'd love to evaluate that with you. Should this room be taupe? Should this room be pink? Should it be white? Is there a more modern? And then also, what is the character of your house? Because millennial gray might actually be perfect for the character of your house. It may be an alabaster white that is better for the character of your house. I want your house to show its best foot forward as soon as possible. We can talk about staging. We can talk about my menu of services, and we can reevaluate that as the year goes on. So if you're thinking I need to sell in February, then I definitely want to talk to you in January. If you're thinking we're going to sell in June, still a good idea to talk sometime in the winter because a lot can change. So goal setting for homeowners and home buyers, 2025 is going to be a great year. And there's so much going on for you personally. I hope that you do run a marathon or a 5K. I hope that you get to the gym a certain number of times this year. I hope that you summit a hill or Mount Rainier, and maybe you take up pickleball. It's going to be so much fun, and I'd love to walk with you through it. So I'm Nikki Robbs at Nikkie Robbs Homes. Let's get you home.